Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you my build. This is something that's been getting heavily requested, actually all the way back when Prometheus first launched. Before I get into it, of course there's no right or wrong build in Icarus because there's many different scenarios, situations, etc. where different things will benefit you. But this is my overall general build, excluding the armor I'm using. So first of all, I'll start with the environmental suit I'm using. I'm using the Larkwell Haulia environmental suit. This is from Prometheus, so if you don't have Prometheus, you cannot get this environmental suit, as this allows you to have 4 module slots. Now, this is one of the things that's down to the individual player regarding the module slots. I have the World Boss module on all the time. The Miners module for plus 15% health regen in caves, plus 50% chance to risk pneumonia, which is important, which I'll get onto in a moment, and plus 15% damage versus cave worms, which is ideal because you're in the cave a lot, mining and getting resources. And of course, you've got to have one of those mass dampener modules for the plus 10% movement speed. And a pheromone module. Basically, I only had this on because I wasn't quite sure what else to put in this socket right now. But this is for your mounts. It'll give you plus 25% tame creature movement speed, plus 50% tame creature maximum stamina. As you can see with this Haulia environmental suit, I only get 1 oxygen bottle slot, so I don't have to have a water bottle on there. I can keep that on my hotbar. Now, this doesn't matter what kind of water bottle you're using or your O2 tank, but I am using the Larkwell Martinez oxygen tank from Prometheus for the additional plus 20% health regen and the plus 5% exposure resistance, along with my Larkwell Martinez heated canteen, which gives me plus 10 rate of warming per minute. So this is really ideal only for the Arctic regions, plus 5 C to temperature. So the fresh air buff from the oxygen tank is very important because every 20 seconds it will refresh and give you this status effect called fresh air. Obviously this is what will give you your plus 20% health regen and your plus 5% exposure resistance. Now onto the armor that I use. I pretty much religiously just use the Wayfarer armor when I'm not in the Arctic. I think it's a cool looking armor, but it does have good stats as well. The overall 5 out of 5 set bonus is plus 5% desert exposure resistance, minus 10% water consumption, which is great if you're living in the desert or you're operating, doing missions in the desert. I use this armor for when I'm in any biome other than the Arctic. So let's take a look at the alterations that I use. On my head, I pretty much always go Cave Dweller 1, and then obviously I'll upgrade to Cave Dweller 2 for the head later game. Plus 30% health regen in caves, plus 25% chance to resist pneumonia. That is the Cave Dweller 1 alteration. Now for the chest piece, I use Plating 1. It'll give you plus 20% health regeneration, plus 5% physical resistance. And for the legs, I go Plating 1 again, which gives me a further plus 20% health regen, and another plus 5% physical resistance. Now onto the arms. I use Workman's 1 alteration here for the arms. It'll give you minus 15% stamina consumed by tool actions, minus 10% wear rate of items. And now onto the feet. This is sure-footed. Basically, there's not many good options for feet, so I just go with this one. Sure-footed 1, plus 10% falling resistance, 20% chance to avoid spraying when taking fall damage. Now, I have always been an archer build in Icarus. I've never been anything else. I have made alternative characters which have used his spears, but my main character has always been bow. When Prometheus came out, the soul crossbow got introduced. Now, this is a very, very good crossbow. As you can see by the stats, I'm not going to sit here and read all of them off for you. You can see them on screen yourselves. 100% hardened point penetration. So basically, this penetrates all hard points on an animal. So, you know when you hit an animal and it comes up with that little blue hit symbol where you've hit a hard point where you haven't done hardly any damage? This bypasses that and it still does the damage. I do have also the new bow as well, the Shengong CZ4, but honestly, if you've got the Larkwell bow, feel free to just use that because these new bows and crossbows are only really good if you want to use elemental arrows or bolts, especially with the ones that got introduced in Prometheus. Because that I am an archer build, That means I also have the Archer's Backpack, the plus 25% reload speed of bows and crossbows, and the plus 10% aim speed with bows and crossbows, and plus 10% arrow speed is ideal for me, especially if I'm hot swapping between bow or crossbow, for example, or just using one or the other. This is definitely more suited towards the arrow though, so the bow, than it is the crossbow, but it's still very beneficial to either weapon. Now, the question I'm going to get asked in the comments is, why do I not just use the workshop armor? Basically, I like to craft my armor and alter it to my situations. You can't do that with workshop gear. So yeah, workshop gear, it's nice to drop down with and get an initial start. But ideally, I like to have the flexibility to be able to mold my character to more my playstyle than just having something straight from the workshop armor wise. Granted, that can be said for any of the weapons as well, but the weapons are a little bit different to the armor. I do carry additional backpacks with me though. I have the Gatherer's Backpack and the Xenon Backpack. The Gatherer Backpack works really well with my build and my alterations I've got because I am in caves an awful lot mining, so I don't get any cave cough at all and I don't have to craft any additional items to remove that. So let's start taking a look at numbers now, because numbers will explain this build a little bit better. So first of all, talent wise, if you want to do the archer build I've got, unlock everything in your combat roll for bows and crossbows. That's self-explanatory. He has the survival tab of my talents. So I've basically got lumber yield, so I get more from felling trees. But the important one here is basically seasoned logsman. Wood is automatically gathered from chopping trees. I've also got the carry weight of exotics as well. That's not really that as important anymore now. I am looking into potentially changing that. So this is a must-have if you want to follow this build along as well. Health bars, you want this 100%. It helps so much. Now for the cooking and farming, it's a bit hit and miss this one, but it does help, especially on farming missions or just if you're a solo player and your crops won't wither away. Under the adventure tab, basically I've tried to max my exposure and stamina as much as possible so I can be out in storms a lot longer. As you can see here, I've got Robust Explorer maxed out and Swift Survivor, and I've also got Field Medic as well, because if I'm on my members only server, that's basically the only time I'm playing multiplayer, and if anybody goes down when we're doing anything, it's nice to be able to get them up. And some for me, reviving a player also generates your health, so that ties in with that. Also got Forest Master, movement speed in the forest, plus 10% health regen in the forest again. So this all ties into my build. I've got a lot of health regeneration, which I'll touch on in a moment. And for the Arctic Master, plus 5% movement speed in the Arctic, plus 15% cold resistance in the Arctic. And for the Desert, it is Desert Master, plus 5% movement speed in the desert, minus 25% water consumed in the desert. And lastly, Quick Refresh, which gives me plus 10% exposure recovery rate. You can get that to 15% if you want to spend more talent points in this and not in something else. Let's start taking a little look at numbers now. Now, if you don't know how to view the numbers of your player, so you can really get a detailed look at how well your player is, you can just go down to your show more screen here, press that, and it will bring it up. So first of all, I want to take a look at his exposure. I've got an exposure resistance of 41% with this build. With this particular build as well, I'll have a resistance of 16% of cold resistance, a heat resistance of 75%, armor installation 0%. Now remember, I don't use this in the Arctic, so that doesn't really affect this build, but 75% heat resistance if you're operating in the desert or living in the desert, that's very good. Next up, the chance to resist pneumonia, 75% with this build. Now obviously you can get that higher if you used tier 2 alterations, but 75 base with tier 1 alterations is very good. You basically, if you keep everything at tier 1, you've only got a 25% chance of actually getting pneumonia in the caves when mining. And I'll be honest with you, ever since I went with this build that I've got, I've never ever had pneumonia in caves again, and I've been in caves a very long time. You just can go out and check my previous live streams recently and you'll see how long I've been spending in caves. And due to the alteration I've got on my gloves, my item wear rate is negative 10% as well. Obviously that'll go higher with tier 2 alteration on my gloves. Like I said at the start of the video though, there's no right or wrong way about doing your build unless you're wearing cloth armor in the Arctic like a maniac. That's the only time where you're really going wrong, to be honest. As always, if you found it helpful, leave a like on the video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what videos you want to see as well, because I'm busy going through the new Olympus open world missions. So the 21 missions that got added to open world for Olympus, I'm currently going through them. I think I've done 6 at this point. What other videos for ICARUS do you want to see other than that? Let me know down in the comments. As always, everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.